Let's see. So we were asked to think about this question. How do we live a remarkable life in a conventional world? And what I love about this audience and speaking with so many of you today is we're all bold enough to ask this question, and which is great, because a lot of people don't. And we also, of course, not only need to ask it, but we need to do something about the ideas that we have and the life that we want to live. And so my answer would be to really defy the obstacles and friction of convention and really make more ideas actually happen. And that has been my obsession since, 6 years ago or so, helping creative people who have a lot of creativity actually create something. So less about finding more ideas, more about making fewer ideas actually see the light of day. And that's what I wanted to really talk about this evening was the roll up your sleeves, practical, somewhat pragmatic, let's get stuff done, and let's take our ideas very seriously and show them some respect. So this is what I've been obsessed with for, again, 6 years, and I've been lucky enough to build a team around this idea of helping more creative people and creative teams actually create something. And over the years, we've done all sorts of things. We've created a paper product that was sort of a bootstrapped way of building our business with helping creatives get organized. We've pushed this into online sort of tools, that sort of thing. And it's become an online network of creatives across the creative industries that showcase their work, get accountability, refinement, build their careers. It's evolved into a major conference, which is led by 𝐍𝐿𝐼, who's actually in the audience today. The 99% part of our business, this has become a real laboratory of how to help creative people and teams take action on ideas. And it's a great website full of content that's contributed by some other people that are in the audience today. And then the book, which really came out of six or so years of interviews of creative people and teams that somehow, some way, consistently defy the odds and make ideas happen. Whether they were teams or individuals at companies like Apple or Facebook or that sort of thing, or small independent photographers, architects, writers who just consistently churn it out. And so that's the theme of the topic today. Now, the sad thing, of course, is that most ideas never happen. Now, some ideas should never happen. But even the greatest ideas suffer horrible odds. And here's the way I'd like to think about that, or here's why. When a new idea strikes, energy and excitement is extremely high, right? This is the moment when we're willing to stay up till 3 in the morning, drafting that business plan. This is when the first chapter to the novel gets written. This is when we're just so enthused that our lives change. We might even be willing to leave our jobs altogether and do something entirely different. And then a week passes, and another week passes, and we fall behind on all those television shows we've been watching. We realize that the second chapter is a little more difficult than the first. That business plan is starting to look a little less sexy. And we miss that energy and excitement that accompanied the new idea. Because as passionate people, we love that feeling. And we instantly want to return to it. And so what do? We use our creativity, and we just come up with another idea. And this process repeats itself again and again and again. And this is why there are more half-written novels in the world than there are novels, because we just keep coming up with more and more ideas. So of course what we want to do is transcend this. We want to somehow push one idea to fruition and survive that project plateau, the doldrums of project management, the endless meetings and the discomfort and the doubt and all the stuff that gets in the way of us focusing on one idea and often causes us to just abandon. So that's one of those things that we're up against, right? This idea-to-idea syndrome that many of us suffer from. We also suffer from the gravitational force of operations. The fact that you can have all these great ideas and different things going on. You can come here for a whole weekend and bask in just enlightenment and then get back and realize your inbox is overflowing and the urgent eventually will get in the way of the important. So that's another thing that we're up against. Another reason why most ideas never see the light of day. A lack of feeling organized. So we talk to all sorts of people in the creative world who define themselves as creative, and we say, how organized do you feel you are? And we've actually done polls of hundreds of thousands of people in the Behance network asking this very question. And most people say, I think it's only 7% say they feel very organized. Double that number say they live a life of quote unquote utter chaos. And then more mess than order overall. So organization is another reason why most ideas never happen. A lack of accountability. So we have ideas and we keep them to ourselves because we're not really ready to share them, and then no one holds us accountable to them. So that's another problem. A lack of leadership capability. So a lot of creative teams that I go into, they talk about attrition problems and the band never staying together, or why do people keep returning? It's like a revolving door in this business. People keep leaving and more people come in. And so why is that? And in the exit interviews that HR people do in some of these teams, the folks never say that they left really just for more money. Usually it comes down to the fact they didn't feel fully utilized. They didn't feel like their skills were being put to the test. They didn't feel like they were asked first. What do they think? And that tracks back to a leadership issue, a management issue. And that's another reason why most ideas never see the light of day. A lack of feedback exchange. This is obviously something really important. We need the refinement and the feedback from our community. Yet sometimes we know we need it, but we don't really ask for it. And when we get it, we try to be defensive to it. And oftentimes when you know something is a real flaw in someone in your lives, idea, but you don't really want to tell them because you don't want to pop their bubble, you're hurting them, right? So this lack of feedback exchange hurts ideas generally from actually happening. And then disorganized and isolated networks. I think that all too often we rely on just the people we happen to know. And we need to start surpassing that. And that's one of the things we focus a lot at Behance with the creative world, but in all industries, we need to kind of get out of the stagnant kind of circumstantial networks that we find ourselves in and make sure that our ideas materialize by engaging a broader community. So no wonder, right? Most ideas never happen. We're up against a lot of obstacles. So now I want to focus on how some individuals and teams defy this, make ideas happen again and again and again. And in the time we have allowed, I want to walk through some practical things that we can think about. So here's the equation that I use for making ideas happen. It's obviously equal to the creativity and the ideas that we already have plenty of in this room, but the three other pieces here. There's the organization and execution. This is how you manage your schedule, your time. What do you do in meetings? When do you not have meetings? How do you take notes? What do you do with those notes? How do you prioritize? How do you allocate your energy on a daily basis? This is around the organization and execution that we often don't even spend any time thinking or auditing or optimizing, yet is critical. The second piece is communal forces. And this is the role that community plays in gaining traction around our ideas. Now, community can mean our peers, colleagues, competitors, customers, clients, readers. These are all different kind of levels of community that play an important role. And we're going to talk about a few specific things in that area. And then the third piece is the leadership capability, the role of a leader of a creative project or team. And some counterintuitive things that a lot of these very productive creative teams, their leaders, what those things that they do. So we're going to jump right in to organization execution. I want to start with a kind of a scary realization that actually all of us, are suffering from at this very moment, which is this inundation with stuff, right? Right now we're getting voicemail messages, text messages, email messages, Facebook messages, Twitter messages, LinkedIn messages. All this stuff is coming into us at an incessant rate. And what we're starting to do is live a life where we're simply trying to peck away at the collective inboxes around us. We're trying to stay afloat. We are constantly reacting to what's coming into us rather than being proactive in what matters most to us. Which is why I like to say, especially in the connected era where we have a device with us wherever we are, that we have entered the era of reactionary workflow, where we can simply react all day, every day, and never be proactive with anything. So I was talking to somebody who drove into work. Every morning has a sort of a morning commute, and this was his forced time of disconnection to kind of unplug and not be constantly reacting to things. And he would think about where his business was, what was coming next, what his goals were, and this was like a really sacred space. And it was like 15 or 20 minutes every morning. And then he got a new car with iPhone integration. And now he has like thousands of songs and apparently Twitter on his dashboard at stoplights, which is like super, super dangerous. But the point is that we've actually lost being forced to disconnect, and we have to force ourselves. And I would venture to say that probably the final frontier of forced disconnection is the shower. And now they have like media centers in the shower and stuff. So the point here is this, is that we actually need to force ourselves. And what a lot of, even social media executives I interview, what a lot of people are doing now is they're creating these windows of non-stimulation in their day. Literally a 2-hour block, like in the morning or in the evening, where you don't look at your inbox or your to-do list. Instead, you're looking at a separate list of 2 to 3 things that are most important to you over the long term. And it's during that time that you're researching, you're thinking, you're digesting, you're planning. And if we don't allocate and force ourselves to have that, it just will not happen. Another thing I want to focus on or make the case about today is organization, the importance of spending time on organization, and how organization is a competitive advantage in making ideas happen. And the way I like to think about it is an equation, last equation of the presentation. Creativity times organization equals the impact that we make with our ideas. So if you have all the creativity in the world and no organization around it, you will make no impact. And I'm sort of making a very controversial suggestion here, which is perhaps if we compromised a little bit on more and more and more and better and better and better ideas and focused a little bit more on the organization around the ideas we've already got, we'll make more of an impact. And recently passed away, but painter that a lot of us will probably know, Thomas Kinkade, with a gallery in every resort town in America. Now, universally despised by art critics, but nevertheless especially prolific. James Patterson has written more best-selling books than Random House's published books combined. Proclaims that he writes 7 novels at once. At any given point in time, he's working on 7 novels. What do the literary critics think of his work? Oh, the plots are the same, already seen that before. But here's someone who, perhaps on the extreme end of the spectrum, is focused on organization and execution. This is not only true for individuals, this is also true for teams and for companies. There's a magazine that comes out every quarter called Supply Chain Management. And it's a magazine that kind of audits the operations of companies and also talks about best practices in operations and supply chain management. And every year they have a list of the 100 most organized companies in the world based on their supply chain management strategies. And which companies would you guess are always on this list? Walmart, UPS, FedEx, right? A lot of these logistics-driven companies are always on this list, known for operations. Yet for the past 5 years, number 1 on this list has been this company. And what are they known for? Creativity, right? Innovation. And you have to wonder if Tim Cook, the current CEO, but the former COO, for so many years, the operations genius, was just, if not more important, as a secret sauce to actually executing these ideas that, frankly, a lot of other companies had, but didn't actually happen. And so organization is a competitive advantage in the creative world. And so the question is, how should we all organize? What should we be doing? And I tried to figure this out. I tried to go to a lot of very productive individuals and teams and observe their systems and looking for that holy grail that we can all kind of proselytize to each other around organization and productivity. And what I found is that the most productive folks had a DIY approach to productivity. They sort of, when you have a home-cooked meal, it tastes a little better. When they had made it themselves, they were more likely to stay loyal to it over time. And I found very, very neurotic systems. There was the CEO of 𝐅𝐎𝐿, a big interactive agency in New York, a guy named Bob Greenberg. He has a certain type of journal that for over 3 decades, he has used this exact type of journal, and a certain type of pen, and a certain type of highlighter. And then every morning at a certain time, roughly, he goes through and he bumps the actionable things that he didn't get done the previous day or the next day. He bumps the clients he's focusing on from the previous day or the next day. And he has this ritual. Now, the guy has 2 assistants, and he runs a digital agency, and he's still doing it in this very analog way. And he was telling me that it was really to help him feel the granularity of what he was and wasn't getting done, this ritual of doing it every day. Well, 10 years into this practice, so like over 20 years ago, he finds out that one of the pens that he uses, the company, has gone out of business. This was his system. This was his own approach. And so what he did is he went out and he bought a pallet of these pens that he keeps in some like climate-controlled room in his house with like his cigars or something. The point being, we have to find our system and we have to make it ours. There were many systems that I observed, many funny ones, but there was a theme across all of them, which was his bias towards action. This focus, this relentless focus on capturing the actionable things, the things that start with verbs, like follow up with so-and-so, redraft this, send this around, and people would just be really insanely focused on action across a lot of these different systems. When they would go into meetings, they would always leave and sort of count the number of action steps that they had captured in the meeting. And if there were no action steps captured, they would even often cancel the meeting going forward. They would say this is not an actionable meeting. This could have been covered with an email. If everyone's breaking their productive workflow, and in the most productive time, usually in the mornings, we break and have meetings and we sit around for an arbitrary amount of time and post each other on stuff that's not actionable at all, that shouldn't be happening. A lot of teams, like I know a lot of the teams at Google now do this, they have standing meetings where they actually stand during the meeting for the 5 or 10 minutes, or as soon as they can break. The idea being that their knees get weak as people go on and on and on. And it's like, cut to it. What do you need from me? Let's move on. So this bias towards action shows up in meetings. Cultures of capturing action, teams that say it's okay if you're talking to me in a meeting and you say, or just in the hallway, and you say, Scott, do you mind following up with so-and-so and sending this around? And I'm like, yeah, but you don't see my pen move? Calling me on it. Be like, did you capture that? So we don't have to have a meeting 2 weeks from now to figure out who is supposed to do what. And really having that practice of going around after a group is together and each person saying what they actually captured, which inevitably will lead to a duplicative action step. We would have confused somebody. 2 people thought they were doing the same thing, or a missed one. And what it always leads to is accountability, right? Because everyone just said what they're going to do, they're more likely to actually do it. So it's important that we do these things. The last piece on organization execution, because I've got to move on, is on prioritization. It's how we should be allocating our energy across all the projects in our life. And imagine different projects in your life, personal, professional, what have you, on sort of a line that starts at idle and then goes low, medium, high, and then all the way to extreme. And this is the energy line upon which you should allocate your energy on a daily basis. Not time, because remember, an hour in the morning is different energy-wise than an hour in the evening or at night when you're tired, but energy-wise. And so you place these projects along the line. Some are on idle, medium, high, and then extreme. And what happens when I see teams do this is 2 things. First of all, people put too many on high and extreme. There's like a reason for everything to be on high and extreme. And they give the reasons. Oh, well, so-and-so said this is important, and so-and-so said this is a priority. And of course, that's like starting a computer up and opening too many applications at once, and everything starts to run more slowly. So what we really need to do is force ourselves to spread these and ask the difficult questions about which things can be on low and idle. What I also see in teams, when people compare their energy lines, is that they never agree. You have on high, I have on low, you have on medium. And this is where a team can make a decision that becomes ammunition on everyday decision-making when you're working. And the truth is, when you have a committed, passionate team working on a creative project and a deadline is missed, it's not because someone didn't care. It's just because there is a misunderstanding about where things lay on the energy line. Because in truth, you should be ahead on the things that are high and extreme. And if you fall behind on something low, that was a good decision. And this is why this is a powerful tool for creative individuals and teams to do. All right, so moving on to communal forces. I talked about sort of the organization, execution, kind of some of the getting your hands dirty type of stuff. Now let's talk about the types of people that are players in the world of ideas. There were 3 types of people I kept meeting. There were the doers, I called them the dreamers, and then the incrementalists. Now, the dreamers. The dreamers love coming up with new ideas. They're thinking, wait a second, maybe we can get so-and-so involved and get a partnership with this company and get this person in, even 3 or 4 days before the conference. Wait a second, maybe we can get these set up and these things and maybe put these in the bags. They're constantly thinking of new things to do. They go to bed at night happy when they're thinking about something new to introduce the next day to make the project better and bolder. That's the dreamer. Then you have the doer. Doer, sort of like the Debbie Downer of the world, all right? The doer's thinking, wait a second, budget, timeline, can't do that. Hey, parking lot. The doer goes to bed at night happy when there is nothing new in the pipeline. Everything is on track and on schedule and on budget, no surprises. That's the way the doer makes it happen. And then you have the incrementalists. The incrementalist kind of has this innate ability to rotate from dreamer mode to doer mode to dreamer mode to doer mode. And you might think, that's the ideal. The problem with the incrementalists is they create too many damn things, and none of them ever scale. And there are people that I have met who, started a fashion boutique and then also started a fashion consultancy, and then they kind of lament at some point and think, gosh, had I just focused on one thing, I would have really killed it. But instead I kept dreaming, executing, which the point is that regardless of what we identify as at any moment in time, the dreamer or the doer or sort of the incrementalist, we've got to round ourselves out with other people. We have to be sharing our ideas liberally, which is another theme that I saw among some of the most productive, creative people and teams that I met, is they had this culture of sharing ideas liberally, early, prematurely, getting it out there. Like Chris Anderson, the editor-in-chief of Wired magazine, very prolific best-selling author, a serial entrepreneur in his own right. He puts everything up on his blog. He just throws it out there, and sometimes people ignore it. Sometimes people disagree. Sometimes people really get excited about it and call him back to it weeks or months later. Did you ever get that publishing deal? Did you ever take the next step on this? Did you ever do that research? He has an internal blog apparently at Wired too, where he's constantly getting the feedback from his colleagues. And this is his source of accountability and the refinement that he needs to push ideas forward. So I met a lot of people like him who said that they would do this. And of course, the first question I would ask is, aren't you scared that someone's going to steal your idea? And also, what about sharing it so, half-baked? Is that really a good idea to do that? And what they would say is, listen, the benefits outweigh the costs. I know that my idea is most likely not going to happen because of the project plateau and so many ideas and the nuances of my life and the gravitational force of operations. And the more I share these, the more likelihood there are to happen. And by the way, if someone can so easily just hear your idea and just do it, it wasn't a good idea to begin with, right? Another piece about communal forces, community, that I also think is important to think about in groups like this is the force of competition. Here's a quick story about 𝐌𝐎𝐋𝐋𝐖, a Brooklyn-based photographer who had been trying to make it. I think it was maybe, over 10 years ago at this point. He started taking a photograph of himself every single day. For no real reason, every single morning, a photograph of himself. He has this going on and on and on, and 5 years into it, still no plan in sight, doing this as sort of a personal project. He's on a photography blog, and he sees a post by a woman, another photographer, who talks about the fact that she's been doing this for 2 years, and how brilliant it is, and how she is going to debut it in some sort of video thing. And he looks at this and he says, no way is she going to beat me to the punch. And so within a week period, he puts together a YouTube video, a montage of every single photograph in rapid succession. He puts it up on YouTube. It becomes one of the most viewed YouTube videos of all time. He gets on the cover of some magazines, and he's on one of the morning shows, and this really becomes like a platform for his career. And the impetus to act on the completion of this idea, of this project, was seeing what his peers were doing, seeing what they were up to, competition. So many folks that I meet say that they were working on something and stewing it and having their real job, and this is a side, and then it was the impetus to act from someone else around them that really made the difference and made it actually happen. And so while we say that we don't have any competition, we love what we do, we're passionate about it, we don't view it that way. In fact, we all need to pace ourselves with people around us, whether in companies, even people on our team, or externally, because oftentimes tuning in to what those folks are doing and pacing yourself is the difference between it seeing the light of day and not. So competition is important. Another thing that was also sort of surprising to me was how many creative teams swore on the benefit of fighting. A lot of these really productive teams would say, yeah, we fight in here, it's a big part of what we do. When we hire people, we tell them we fight. So I was like, well, what does this really mean? And the way it was described to me was this. 4 or 5 people sitting around a table trying to determine the solution to a problem. All of us really care. We have a different level of experience or expertise. And so, I am saying, here's what I think we should do. And it's almost like a multi-dimensional tug of war. And as I say that, I am yanking the rope towards me. And all of you are forced to explore my design space of opinion. All of the solutions that I'm advocating for, you're really hearing me out. And then you say, no, I disagree. And you yank it towards you. And as you do that, I am forced to explore your space of opinion. And we keep doing this, and as we're doing this, we're covering all the possibilities until someone's voice raises and someone else gets frustrated, and then someone inevitably says, you know what, they let go of the rope. I don't care anymore, whatever you think. I am fine with whatever, which we've all heard at one point or another. That is called apathy. And apathy screws over the customer, the client, the user, the people, the constituency that we're trying to serve. Because at that moment, the space of opinion around you is no longer explored. And so what a lot of these teams do is they fight apathy ruthlessly, and they keep the fight going. Now, that being said, they don't want to become burdened by the lowest common denominator. We don't want to come with a result that we all sort of agree with, but isn't remarkable or bold at all. And so to study this, I went into some experienced design firms, these teams that build monuments and memorials and that sort of stuff. And one firm in particular called Think Design, based in New York, did a lot of the memorial design for the September 11th memorial. And think about all the constituents that they have to please with a project like this. the victims' families, the government, the design community, the architecture community, the general public. And so my question to them was, how the hell do you make sure you have something that you're still proud of at the end of the day? Something that moves people when you have all these different constituencies to please? And the answer, the theme, was finding those sacred extremes, those one or two things that you think will be most distinguishing in every project, and then holding those dear and being willing to compromise on pretty much everything else. And when you go into these presentations, you're trying to get people on board with some bold idea, rather than sort of hiding those two things, leading with them, saying, based on our research, based on this and based on that, this is the one thing, or these are the two things we think are going to be really special and move people. And everything else, frankly, we need to find common ground on. In fact, you should be doing advanced buy-in with these constituencies, right? Calling them in advance and trying to get them on board. So we need to make sure that we keep kind of bold ideas alive, and this is one way of doing it. Okay, so we've talked about the organization execution. We've moved on to some of the roles that community plays in gaining traction on ideas and holding us accountable and hearing what we're working on. Now we're going to talk about some of the leadership stuff and sort of some things that I noticed in very especially productive, creative teams that were really well led. And I would say that a lot of these great teams, to me, functioned like immune systems, really strong immune systems. And sort of like the human body, right? We get sick, we catch a cold, the immune system attacks it, and that's how we stay healthy. The immune system has to kill off anything that's foreign, anything that's new, and that's how we stay healthy. The only exception would be if you were to ever get an organ transplant, and the first thing the doctor does is he or she suppress your immune system so you can take on something entirely new. And that would be the situation in an organ transplant. Well, in a creative team, in day-to-day operations, the doers are the immune system. The doer's job is to kill off anything that's new and going to get us off track or over budget in day-to-day operations. And quite frankly, most things should be killed. But when we're trying to solve a problem, when we go into the brainstorming mode, when we're sitting around the table brainstorming and going back and forth, that's when the doers have to be suppressed, the tendency to kill has to be suppressed, and the dreamers have to be able to flourish. And this is a healthy immune system. Now, the problem with a lot of us in this room is we are visionaries. We are dreamers. And you know who we love to work with? Dreamers. And so it becomes an intoxicated orgy of idea generation with no sober monitor, no designated driver, and nothing gets done. And so we need to make sure that we don't only engage the dreamers, that our hiring litmus test is, do I want to have a beer with this person? That's not sufficient. We need to make sure that we hire people to make this immune system strong. And we need to have each person kind of value the role that each other plays. You can laugh at the doer sometimes, but respect the doer. This is an important thing to keep in mind with the immune system of a team. How about the types of people that really make an impact in what matters most to them? I think that, to me, these are people that work in the overlap of three areas. Their genuine interest, the thing that they could stay up at night and hold their eyes open reading about, they're so interested in it. That's called a real genuine interest, right? Then there is the skills that you have or can easily develop. And this may be a genuine interest in developing a skill, and you have an interest in, so let's say like music. You live in New Orleans, and you love music. That's your genuine interest. And you have the opportunity, which is a third sphere. By living in New Orleans, you can be in the music industry if you want to. But if you can't carry a note for the life of you, you're not working in the overlap of these three areas. You're only working in the overlap of two. However, if you have business skills, and you live in New Orleans, and you have a genuine interest in music, you are working in the overlap of these three areas. And that's where everything comes together and magic happens. As leaders of creative projects, the cool thing is that we control one of these spheres. We control the opportunity area. So we can determine what sorts of things people on our teams do to make sure that it overlaps with their skills and with their genuine interests. And so that's why it's something that great leaders do, with creative projects, is they're always trying to make sure that each of us is working in our overlap. So we should obviously do this for ourselves, but also for the people that we work with and for and under. And so another thing I want to talk about quickly, because I know many of us actually work in large companies, and we're change agents. We're trying to move things forward. And we're always struggling against bureaucracy, whether it's with clients or with the companies that we actually work in ourselves. The best analogy I can come up with for bureaucracy is an ocean that is just about to freeze over. And the ship is trying to get to the destination you have in mind, and is moving inch by inch by inch. And if you keep this ship moving, then you're going to get there eventually, slowly but eventually. But if you sit stagnant for any more than a few moments in time, you're going to be stuck forever. That to me is bureaucracy. And so the question is, what is the equivalent of this ship moving forward? I would propose to you that it's asking annoying questions. For example, you're in a meeting and we're talking about a great idea, and then someone says, oh, but that's a legal issue. Legal has to sign off on that. Oh, well, who's going to call legal? Oh, great. When will you tell us? When are you going to call them? Oh, can we schedule a meeting for after you've spoken with them next week? How's Wednesday? Oh, 7 o'clock, asking these questions. Or so-and-so's on vacation. We can't talk about that now. Oh, great. Well, so when will they be back? And who can make the decision while they're gone? These are sort of annoying questions. It's like, stop asking me these questions. Yet, this is what keeps the ship moving forward. It was interesting. I was talking to Ken Chenault, who's the CEO of American Express, who had this really long career climbing this huge bureaucracy to the very top. And the question to him was, what was one of the secrets of a productive career in bureaucracy and in climbing the ranks and getting noticed, that sort of thing? And he thought for a moment, and then he said, the one thing I did that was most important was I would make my bosses make decisions. I would make my bosses make decisions. He wasn't presumptuous in making the decisions for them, but he was just making people make decisions. And that's what we need to do to overcome bureaucracy and push ideas forward amidst the inevitable, icy oceans that we navigate in a lot of the areas that we work. It's very important to do that. So now I want to share with you a bit of a newer idea to me, because we are all thinking about the future of creative work. And I go to a lot of companies that talk about how to retain, they call it the young people. How do we keep these people? They are so selfish. They come and they want to learn on the job, and they want to get this opportunity, and they've only been here for 2 weeks, and they feel like, and they're always saying they want the stretch, and they want to work with a client they've never worked with before, and this is the way they phrase it. It's a frustration. I think it's a lot bigger than this, and I don't think it's just young people. I think it's old people. I think it's people all across the spectrum. There's a new era of workers, of people who have intention to do something. I'm calling them the free radicals, and here's how I'm kind of envisioning or describing these people these days. We seek work that is first and foremost intrinsically rewarding. So money is not enough to do it for us. We have to feel like we are personally, intrinsically rewarded by the work that we are doing. We make stuff often and we fail often, and we want to be able to fail often. It's just like an expectation that we have in the types of work that we do, whether it's for ourselves as freelancers, independent professionals working with small teams, or in large companies. We have little tolerance for bullshit. Friction, bureaucracy, the old boy networks of who works with who and who knows who for what, we just don't think it matters anymore. And we are also really angered by it. We expect to be fully utilized and constantly optimized. So if we don't feel like we're learning anymore, we're out. We're gone. We're just not interested. And we always want to be made better. We expect feedback. It's a form of compensation that we actually expect to receive. We consider open source technology ours. We actually think that it should be used for everything we can use it for. And when companies that we're working with tell us, oh no, you can't use any open source, we think that's reinventing the wheel. And it just frustrates us. We believe that networking is sharing. We have no tolerance for these cocktail receptions and with business card exchanges and all this stuff. We actually think that the best form of networking is sharing the things that we're doing and learning, committing code to the open source databases. This is how we gain respect, and this is how we make connections and flourish in our careers. And last but not least, actually not last, I'm sure there are many more, we insist on meritocracy. We are tired of people getting opportunity just because of how long they've been there, or how old they are, or who they know. And we really have this expectation now, through whether it's technology or what have you, for meritocracy to serve us in some way, in our careers and in the impact that we want to make and what matters most to us. Who in here feels like this sort of describes them? All right, so we got free radicals in this room. What we need to do as leaders of projects is we need to seek, engage free radicals. We need to be free radicals. We need to really start to push this. I think that the smartest companies will recognize that their competitive advantage is engaging and working with free radicals in some way. And ironically, right, because it's also their biggest threat. The fact that the whole free radical revolution is here is because of the reduction of friction. The fact that now, without, you don't have to pay inordinate amounts to have invoicing software and finance and legal and all this other stuff. You can get a lot of these things for $20 a month online. You can spin up servers in 10 seconds rather than the 5 months it used to take to actually get servers in place to start a business in the technology world. So this is our moment. This is our time. And we've got to take it really, really seriously. Last but not least, I want to share on a more personal note the people that I was meeting in the interviews for the book and really just over the years who've had just great career trajectories. A lot of these folks were doing something and were frustrated with something or saw a problem they wanted to solve, but then for some reason something just changed in them. Their trajectory completely changed. And I would ask them about that moment or that time, like what was it that changed? And oftentimes what they would say is it was a moment in their career where they gained confidence from being doubted, where they sort of realized that, like for example, in the publishing world, they met somebody who was on a fast track to being the top of a huge publishing company. And I guess it was 7 years ago or something, he got an offer to become part of this small little fledgling group called Digital Publishing. 3 other people, and he took the job, he wanted to take the job, and people said, "You're crazy. Like, no one's ever gonna read a book on a computer. And why would you throw away the fast track that you're on?" And for whatever reason, the more people that told him that he was nuts to do this, the more confident he became that he was really making the right career decision. Which makes us wonder that if everyone says you're crazy, you're either crazy or you're really onto something. Society is very hypocritical. Society is really hypocritical. We shun what we end up celebrating. We shun the college dropouts, the Jobs, the Zuckerbergs, the Gates of the world, all the other people that we know, and then we celebrate them when they change life as we know it. And so it makes no sense. But what we have to recognize is that we need to learn to gain confidence from the doubt that we get. And we must remember that nothing extraordinary is ever achieved through ordinary means. Nothing extraordinary is ever achieved through ordinary means. Thank you.